You know that moment when everything you thought was solid just breaks? That was New Year's Eve for me. My name is Marlon Everhart. I'm 38 years old, live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and up until recently, I thought I had a pretty normal life. I've been married to Linnea for 12 years. We have 2 kids, Thomas is 12, Megan is 8. I work in commercial insurance underwriting. Sounds dull, right? That's the point. Back when I was younger, I dreamed of becoming a civil engineer. I wanted to design bridges, buildings, real things that lasted. But dreams don't always pay student loans or feed a family. So when Linnea got pregnant with Thomas, I took the first stable job that came my way. Commercial insurance sounded temporary at the time. I'd meant to pivot, but life kept happening. Linnea, on the other hand, kept rising. She finished nursing school, became a physical therapist, and didn't stop. These days, she runs her own practice and runs marathons, too. People look at her like she's some kind of superhero, because in a lot of ways, she is. Self-made, disciplined, always in motion. We weren't flashy. We never had time to be. Our life was built in the quiet spaces, between commutes, school pickups, sleepless nights, and carefully managed paychecks. I used to take a strange pride in that. In being the guy who held the line. The man who sacrificed quietly. Not a hero, not a villain, just the glue. Or so I thought. The retreat was Tyson Rook's idea. He's my boss, 29, brilliant, reckless, the kind of guy who'd start a company just to prove he could and actually succeed. He's also the kind of guy who throws opulent retreats for his staff at mountain resorts with catered sushi and vintage champagne. Not that I drink anymore. Not since Thomas was born. Tyson had invited the whole team to a New Year's Eve getaway at a rented chateau in the Poconos. Linnea was excited, too excited, maybe. She wore this red silk dress that made everyone stop and look when we walked in. And Tyson? He couldn't stop looking. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. The long stares, the overloud compliments. The way he hovered when she laughed, when she moved, when she poured a drink. Linnea didn't pull away. She met his energy with ease, more than ease. I'd never seen her like that before. Then came the countdown. Midnight. Everyone gathered under this massive crystal chandelier. Tyson held a glass of champagne in one hand and my wife in the other. I saw it before it happened. Some part of me knew. But nothing prepares you for the moment it actually unfolds. The room shouted 10, 9, 8, and when it hit 0, Tyson didn't just kiss Linnea, he grabbed her waist and kissed her like they were the only 2 people in the room. Her arms didn't resist. They wrapped around him like they belonged there. People gasped, laughed, cheered, like it was some sort of edgy office joke. I just stood there, my plastic cup of ginger ale still in my hand, watching the world split. Linnea saw me. I know she did. Her eyes flicked past Tyson's shoulder and landed on mine. But she didn't stop. She didn't even look sorry. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't shout or punch anyone. I just turned around and walked outside, into the freezing dark, and stood there while fireworks went off in the distance. The snow fell quietly, like it didn't care what just happened. That was the moment something in me broke, not loud, not explosive, just clean and final, like a bone you didn't know was fractured until it snapped. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a crack in the illusion. And once it starts, you can't stop seeing the truth. Memorial Day came quicker than I expected, considering how long the winter felt. Not much had changed between me and Linnea. Not on the surface, anyway. We still packed lunches, paid bills, watched Thomas's soccer games and Megan's recitals. But under it all, something was hollow. She never mentioned the kiss. Neither did I. We just carried on. Then the invitation came. Tyson sent out a company-wide email. Memorial Day weekend escape, Anerel Peaks. Sun, wine, hiking, reflection. Spouses welcome. RSVP by Friday. I stared at the screen for a long time. The name sounded like something out of a catalog. Anerel Peaks. I'd never heard of it, which meant it was probably expensive, remote, and completely unnecessary. I had half a mind to delete the email and pretend I never saw it. But that night, Linnea brought it up before I could. You see the retreat invite? She asked, not looking up from the fridge. Yeah, I said. Didn't think we'd go. Linnea shut the door with her hip, 2 yogurts in her hand. Why not? I turned slowly. You want to go? She looked at me then, full on. It's a work thing. People expect you to show up. Besides, the kids are already going to your mom's that weekend. That stung more than it should have. She had already planned to go. She just hadn't told me. You sure that's the only reason? I asked before I could stop myself. She held my gaze for a second too long. Yes, she said flatly. What's that supposed to mean? I shook my head. Nothing. She turned and walked away. Just like that, it was settled. The Anarel Peaks weren't on any GPS system. Tyson sent custom directions in a PDF file. That should have been my first warning. The lodge was perched on the edge of a cliff, surrounded by forest thick enough to swallow the sun. The final stretch was a narrow suspension bridge made of timber and steel cables, stretching over a ravine that had to be at least 200 feet deep. We crossed it in a rented Jeep. Linnea was practically vibrating in the passenger seat, phone in hand, taking videos like she was already planning her Instagram captions. I just gripped the wheel and focused on the creaking of the boards under our tires. The lodge itself was absurd. 3 stories of polished wood, black metal accents, wide open decks with lounge chairs already set with blankets and wine glasses. A private chef was firing up something on the patio grill. Guests were already scattered across the yard like extras in a perfume commercial, men in linen shirts, women in oversized sunglasses and swimsuits, all of them far too relaxed for people on a professional retreat. Tyson greeted us at the door in bare feet and a white button-down that was halfway open. Marlon, he shouted, arms wide. He wrapped me in a hug before I could dodge it. Glad you came, man. Linnea, he turned to her and held her hands a moment too long. You look dangerous. She laughed, eyes sparkling. I stood there feeling like a misplaced piece of furniture. We got assigned a room on the 2nd floor with a balcony view of the mountains. It was beautiful, I couldn't lie. But I didn't unpack. Something in me couldn't. That night, we all gathered around a massive stone fire pit outside. Wine was poured like it came from a faucet. The other guests were mostly Tyson's startup circle, slick guys with venture capital beards and big opinions about microdosing. Their girlfriends, or maybe wives, I couldn't tell, were all effortless in a way that felt expensive. Designer athleisure, fake laughing at jokes that weren't funny. Linnea fit in disturbingly well. She leaned into Tyson's side during stories, brushed his arm when she laughed. I watched, silent, sipping sparkling water and pretending I didn't feel like a ghost. At one point, Tyson caught my eye and raised his glass. To Marlon, he said, a man who's got the rare trait of steadiness. We need more of that in this world. People clinked glasses. Linnea smiled at me like it was supposed to be a compliment. All I heard was, you're harmless. As the fire cracked and the stars showed up overhead, the conversations got slower, more deliberate. Couples drifted off in pairs. I turned to look for Linnea and saw her walking toward the hot tub with Tyson. She didn't look back. I stayed by the fire, surrounded by strangers with familiar smiles. And I realized something. Not only did I not belong here, I was never supposed to. This wasn't a retreat. It was a stage. And I was just part of the background. The next morning, I woke up before Linnea. The room was still dim, blinds pulled shut, her bare shoulder just visible beneath the sheet. She looked peaceful, or maybe just distant. I slipped out of bed quietly, pulled on jeans and a sweatshirt, and stepped out onto the deck. The mountain air was sharp and cold, but clean. For a second, I let myself believe I could breathe again. There was a small printed itinerary by the coffee station downstairs. Optional morning hike, 8 a.m., North Summit Trailhead. I had no plans, no one to talk to, and a knot in my chest that wouldn't let me sit still. So I went. At the trailhead, I saw her, Tessa. She was standing off to the side in hiking boots and a black jacket, sipping something from a steel thermos. Not talking to anyone. Just waiting. Her posture was straight, chin lifted, but her face held no warmth. She didn't smile when I approached. You here for the hike? I asked. She looked me over, not rudely, just efficiently. You're Marlon. It wasn't a question. Yeah, I said, shifting my pack. Sorry, have we met? No, she replied, turning and starting up the trail. But I know who you are. I followed her, confused, curious. She didn't offer small talk. The trail wound through dense pine and rocky inclines, silence broken only by the occasional crunch of gravel underfoot. After about 20 minutes, she finally spoke again. You seem like a man who doesn't ask enough questions. I glanced at her. What's that supposed to mean? It means, she said, not looking back, you're surrounded by people playing chess while you're still reading the rules. I laughed under my breath. You always talk like this? Only when I'm being polite. We reached the summit just after 9. The view was staggering, rolling green valleys below, clouds hanging low like they were taking a rest. We stood at the edge, both quiet, breathing hard from the climb. So who are you? I asked. She sipped from her thermos. Tessa. I'm with the Office of Regulatory Compliance. You can think of me as the grown-up they send when boys with too much money start lighting matches indoors. I frowned. Wait, your government? She raised an eyebrow. Don't sound so surprised. Did you think retreats like this go unmonitored? Tyson Rook has a file as thick as a phone book. They keep me around to make sure his little sandbox doesn't turn into a wildfire. And you just blend in? I don't blend, she said. I hover. I leaned against a rock, my head spinning. Why are you telling me this? Because, she said, finally looking at me directly, you're the only one here who hasn't lied to himself yet. I didn't know how to respond to that. The wind picked up. She pulled her jacket tighter. I'm not your friend, Marlon. Don't mistake this for solidarity. I don't care about your marriage, your career, or your sense of betrayal. I'm just saying, don't make waves unless you're prepared to sink. I stared at the ground. So I should just shut up and take it? No, she said, her voice softening, almost imperceptibly. I'm saying there's a difference between reacting and planning. One of them gets you hurt. The other gets you free. We hiked back down without saying much more. I was still trying to understand who she was, what her angle was. But deep down, I knew she wasn't lying. When we returned to the lodge, the sun was bright overhead. I walked in through the back patio entrance and stopped cold. Linnea was in the hot tub, on Tyson's lap, topless. There were 6 other people lounging nearby. No one looked surprised. A few glanced my way, then looked quickly away. Linnea didn't flinch. Her head was tilted back, Tyson's hand resting on her thigh, his lips close to her neck. She knew I was watching, and she didn't care. I didn't say a word. I didn't even move. Something in me went very still. Tessa's words echoed in my head. Don't make waves unless you're prepared to sink. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to swim anymore. That night, the kitchen was empty when I wandered in. The party had moved out to the deck, music, laughter, bottles clinking. I stood at the counter, staring into the open fridge like it held answers. My stomach was hollow, but it wasn't hunger. Linnea walked in barefoot, still damp from the hot tub. She was wearing a thin robe that clung to her body in the wrong places, the kind of soft cotton that didn't hide anything. Her hair was up, a lazy knot, and she looked fresh, like someone who'd just finished a workout, or something else. She didn't act surprised to see me. Hey, she said casually, pulling a bottle of sparkling water from the fridge. You didn't come to the fire pit. I wasn't invited, I said. My voice came out quieter than I meant. She twisted the cap off the bottle and took a slow sip. You don't need an invitation, Marlon. You're my husband. I stared at her, waiting, daring her to explain what I saw. But she didn't. She leaned against the counter like it was any other night in our kitchen back home. Then she said it. I'm sleeping with Tyson. Just like that. No preamble, no apology. Just a line delivered like she was noting the weather. I blinked. What? She met my eyes, unfazed. Just for the weekend. That's the deal. What deal? She took another sip. He likes you. Thinks you're useful. This, she gestured vaguely between her and the world outside, makes things easier. I couldn't find words. I just kept hearing my own pulse. Are you serious right now? I finally asked. She nodded. It's nothing emotional. It's just practical. You've worked hard, Marlon. You've earned this kind of opportunity. Don't blow it. I leaned against the sink, gripping the edge with both hands. You're telling me you're sleeping with my boss as a favor to me? She shrugged. I didn't say favor. I said it helps. My mouth was dry. What happened to us? Linnea looked at me for a moment, head tilted, like she was trying to remember. Then she said, we grew up. Things change. You changed. No, I said. You did. She didn't argue. She just stood there, sipping water, like we were discussing weekend plans instead of detonating our marriage. Behind her, Tessa walked in. She paused when she saw us, but didn't flinch. She went straight for the liquor shelf, poured 2 fingers of something brown, and slid it across the counter to me without a word. Linnea gave a light laugh. Oh good, now you have a chaperone. Tessa didn't respond. She just raised her glass slightly. He's going to need one. Linnea rolled her eyes, finished her water, and walked out, barefoot, silent, robe swaying. I stood there frozen. Tessa sipped her drink. You want to hit something, she said. Don't. I couldn't even finish. She just reminded you who you married. Tessa said quietly. I shook my head. This isn't her, isn't it? I looked at her, wanting answers, but she gave none. Just leaned against the doorframe like she'd seen this scene play out a dozen times before. Then, from somewhere upstairs, a sound cut through the quiet, a moan. Loud. deliberate. Linnea's voice, rising and then breaking, as if performed for an audience. My breath caught. Tessa said nothing. Another sound, Tyson's voice this time, low, guttural. And then Linnea again, sharper, louder, echoing off the high beams and stone walls. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I didn't need to ask what was happening. I knew. It was theater. A message. I felt my throat tighten, my hands curling into fists. But I didn't speak. I didn't break anything. Tessa put her glass down, walked over, and placed her hand lightly on my arm. Not tonight, she said softly. They want a reaction. Don't give it to them. Not yet. So I stood there, in the kitchen of $1 million lodge, listening to my wife scream in ecstasy upstairs, with my boss, and I said nothing. Because I finally understood what Tessa meant. Survival comes first. Retaliation? That comes later. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed while Linnea snored lightly under the sheets, utterly at ease, as if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't whispered another man's name behind our bedroom door just hours earlier. At dawn, I got up quietly, dressed, and stepped outside into the cold mountain air. The deck creaked under my weight. The valley below was still wrapped in mist, soft and gray. The birds hadn't started yet. It was that kind of silence, the kind right before something breaks. I walked the perimeter of the property, past the sauna, past the fire pit with its half-melted logs, and finally to the back utility road that wrapped around the estate like a secret. That's where I found it, the generator shed. It wasn't locked. Inside was everything I needed, tools, fuel containers, even an old roll of chain link. I stared at the red plastic gas cans for a long time. My heart was pounding, but not out of fear. It was something else, something quiet and cold. I checked the Jeep first. It was still parked near the bridge entrance, where we'd left it after unloading our bags. I popped it into neutral, rolled it silently down the gravel slope, and positioned it just a few feet from the start of the bridge. No one saw me. Everyone was still sleeping off their wine and hot tub sins. I poured the gasoline across the wooden slats, slow, careful. I made sure it reached both ends, weaving under the Jeep and all the way to the center of the bridge. The air grew sharp with fumes. My eyes watered. I stepped back, lit a match, tossed it. At first, there was just a flicker, then a whoosh, then a roar. Fire raced across the wood like it had been waiting for the invitation. The suspension cables popped and snapped. Black smoke curled into the dawn like a question mark. I didn't look back. I walked calmly down the trail, past the hot tub, past the empty champagne flutes, past the shattered remnants of whatever I thought my life used to be. The bridge burned behind me. I could hear the screams a minute later, someone yelling from the lodge deck, then footsteps pounding down the path. The pop of tires exploding. The wail of Tyson's voice. What the hell? What the actual hell? I kept walking. By the time the sun cleared the ridge, I was 10 miles down the mountain, cell service blinking back on. I caught a ride with a maintenance truck headed back to town. Didn't say much, just mumbled something about an emergency and tipped the guy $100 to keep his mouth shut. Back in Harrisburg that afternoon, I did what I knew how to do, work. I drove straight to the office building downtown. My keycard still worked. The place was empty for the holiday. I went to my desk, turned on the monitor, and opened the back-end systems. See, they thought I was boring. Thought I was quiet and forgettable. They forgot that I was also the underwriter who built the backdoor access to the company's operating accounts. The one who handled compliance filings. The one who submitted the quarterly reports Tyson never read before signing. I didn't steal a dime. I just moved everything. I funneled the operating funds, $1.3 million, into a legal trust one had created years ago during a risk assessment. It was dormant, untouched, meant to protect the firm in case of insolvency. Funny how it ended up protecting me instead. The moment the transfer cleared, I froze every login Tyson had, paused all scheduled wire payments, canceled the upcoming marketing disbursements. The system ran straight into a wall, and I left it that way. By the time I stepped out of the building, the first text arrived. Tyson, what the hell happened to the bridge? Tyson, call me. Now. Linnea, are you okay? Where are you? Then a cascade. Tyson, the company account is frozen. I can't access anything. Linnea, babe, this isn't funny. You can't just disappear. Tyson, what did you do, Marlon? Linnea, what did you do? I turned off the phone, went home, showered, ate a grilled cheese sandwich in complete silence. Then I opened a new checking account at a different bank. I scheduled an appointment with my lawyer for Tuesday morning. I made a list. Resign from Tyson's firm. Begin divorce filing. Secure custody rights. Document everything. By midnight, my world was officially my own again. And up in those mountains, Linnea and Tyson were stranded. No bridge, no internet, no access to the company they'd used to control me. I didn't leave a note. They didn't deserve a goodbye. Only the sound of wood splintering in flame. Only the silence that follows when the weight finally falls away. I didn't just burn the bridge. I made sure there was no way back. Tuesday morning, I was sitting in a conference room at Walsh & Denton, a family law firm that didn't advertise but came highly recommended by my accountant. My lawyer, Rhonda Myers, was sharp-eyed and unsentimental. Mid-50s. Wore navy suits like armor and looked like she hadn't smiled since 2003. Do you want custody? She asked flatly. Yes, I said. Primary. I'll settle for joint, but I want stability. She nodded. Then we moved fast. By noon, the papers were in motion. Divorce, custody filing, emergency injunction on the marital assets. Rhonda assured me Linnea wouldn't be able to access the kids' college funds or sell the house without my consent. You're smart, she said, sliding the paperwork into a folder. Most men wait until after they're gutted. You're doing it clean. Clean. That word stuck with me. I quit the company the same day. Submitted my resignation via legal notice, CC'd Tyson, the board, and HR. No explanation, no emotion, just legal language and cold facts. Then I filed the report about financial mismanagement. Not to ruin anyone, just to start the avalanche. By Wednesday, the emails started. Tyson, you're out of your mind. You don't know what you've done. Linnea, I get it. You're mad. But this is going too far. Let's talk. By Friday, it escalated. Tyson, you think you're smarter than me? You're not. This company was my idea. I made it what it is. You're dead without me. Linnea, please stop this. For the kids. Be reasonable. I didn't answer. The police came knocking the following week. 2 detectives in plain clothes showed up at my door asking about a suspicious act of property destruction in the Anarel Peaks. Do you know anything about a fire that took out a bridge up there? One asked. I didn't blink. I left early. Emergency with my kids. Didn't see anything. Wasn't involved. They didn't have a warrant. Just questions. I gave polite, empty answers and let Rhonda know the moment they left. They'll push, but unless there's evidence, it's just noise, she said. They don't have you. Stay quiet. So I did. Meanwhile, I started working again at a local firm with less prestige, fewer late nights, and better air. I wore jeans to the office. Nobody cared. My phone didn't buzz every 30 seconds. I picked Thomas up from soccer practice. I helped Megan with a science project on ecosystems. For the first time in years, my life felt like my own. And then, late one Friday night, Linnea showed up. She was standing on the porch in the rain, soaked to the bone, no umbrella. Her eyes were wide, mascara running. She looked like a woman who'd lost something she never thought she could lose. I opened the door. Didn't invite her in. Marlon, she said, voice cracking. I'm sorry. I didn't speak. She stepped closer. Please. Just talk to me. I folded my arms. What do you want? She shook her head slowly. I didn't think you'd really do it. Not all of it. Not like this. I stared at her. Blank. You thought I'd stay. That I'd swallow it. No, she whispered. I thought you'd forgive me. I almost laughed. I thought it was just a moment, she continued, hands trembling. I thought I could keep everything. You. Tyson. The comfort. The family. I was stupid. I see that now. I kept my voice low. You told me it was a deal. She closed her eyes. I know. God, I know. I was so numb to everything I didn't even feel how wrong it was. I didn't expect to feel anything when you walked away. But then you did. And everything fell apart. I watched her for a long time. Her hair was plastered to her face. Her breathing shallow. But I didn't step aside. I didn't offer her a towel. You made your choice, I said. I was wrong. That doesn't undo it. She swallowed hard. What about the kids? They're okay, I said. They're better, honestly. That hit her harder than anything else. Her knees buckled slightly. She caught herself on the railing. Marlon, just let me come inside. Just to talk. I shook my head. Not tonight. I don't want to lose everything. You already did. For a second, I thought she might fall apart right there. But she didn't cry. She just stood there, soaked and small, and nodded. Then she turned and walked down the steps, her shoes squelching against the pavement. She didn't look back. I closed the door, locked it, went upstairs and tucked Megan into bed. Her hair smelled like coconut shampoo. Her stuffed rabbit was tucked under her chin. I sat there in the dark, watching her breathe. Clean. That was the word Rhonda used. But it didn't feel clean. It felt like ashes. Like something scorched beyond repair. Still, better ashes than chains. Better silence than screaming. And better alone than forgotten. Christmas Eve came with a dusting of snow, just enough to make the houses look softer, kinder. The neighborhood was quiet, blinking lights in windows, wreaths on doors, the sound of carols drifting from someone's Bluetooth speaker down the street. Inside my place, the tree was modest. Real, not plastic. Megan and Thomas had decorated it mostly by themselves, crooked ornaments, clumps of tinsel in one spot. But it felt honest. I was wrapping the last of Megan's presents when I heard the knock. Not a polite one. Just 3 solid wraps. When I opened the door, Linnea was standing there. She was in an old wool coat, one I hadn't seen in years. No makeup. Red nose. Eyes puffy like she hadn't slept. A plastic grocery bag dangled from her hand, inside it, a bottle of wine and what looked like a wrapped gift with cheap paper. I didn't move. "Hi," she said, her breath visible in the cold. I didn't say anything. She hesitated. I know it's late, and it's Christmas, but I didn't know where else to go. I stepped out onto the porch, pulling the door almost closed behind me. "You could have gone to your sisters, or your parents, or, I don't know, stayed wherever you've been since August." "They won't talk to me," she said. "Tyson's gone. The business collapsed. His friends turned on him when the money dried up." I said nothing. She rubbed her hands together, fingers pink from the cold. "I've been staying at an extended stay place. No kitchen, just a microwave. I got the kids a few little things from the drugstore. I didn't know if I'd be allowed to see them." "They're asleep," I said. "They're warm. Safe." She nodded quickly. Her mouth trembled. "I know I don't have a right to be here, but I needed to say something. Please." I waited. She looked up at me, and the pain in her eyes was real. Not performative. Not sharp like it used to be, just worn out, empty. Like someone who'd run out of stories to tell. "I messed up," she whispered. "I thought I could have everything. I thought I was smarter than the rules. I thought I could control it all. But I couldn't even see what I was breaking." I crossed my arms. "You told me what happened with Tyson was just for the weekend. Like you were offering yourself as leverage. Like a perk." "I was trying to be clever," she said, her voice shaking. "Trying to play the game. He made me feel powerful. Seen. Like I was finally more than someone's mom or someone's wife. I got drunk on it. But it was poison." "No," I said. "You weren't drunk. You were clear-headed enough to call it a strategy." She winced. "You looked me in the face and said it would help my career," I continued. "Like you were doing me a favor while climbing into his lap." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I remember the sounds," I said. "That night. You didn't even try to hide it. You were louder than you needed to be. Louder than anyone should be. And all I could do was stand in the kitchen, listening." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "And now you're here on Christmas Eve because there's nowhere else to go. Not because you love me. Not because of the kids. Because this was the last door you hadn't tried." Her voice cracked. "I'm not asking to come back. I swear. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I didn't speak. She took a deep breath. "I thought I was in control. That it didn't mean anything. But I wasn't in control of anything. He used me. And I let him. And then I used you to clean it up. I used our family. I thought," she paused, her voice barely above a whisper, "I thought I could find my way back." I looked at her. Really looked. This wasn't the woman from the lodge, smiling through champagne, draped across a man in a hot tub. This was someone hollowed out. Someone who had burned every bridge but one, and was now standing in the snow asking if there was any wood left. "What do you want me to say, Linnea?" She looked down at the grocery bag in her hand. "Nothing," she said. "I just wanted you to see me. One last time. Not the version of me from up there. Just me." We stood in silence. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for permission. "I don't know what happens now," she said. "But if there's any part of you that believes I can be better, for them, not for me, I'd do anything." I opened the door a few inches. She looked up, eyes hopeful. But I didn't invite her in. I set the bag on the porch floor. "You can drop off the gifts for the kids," I said. "That's it." She nodded slowly. "And tomorrow," I added, "we'll talk about visitation. The right way? Through the lawyer." Her chin trembled, but she didn't argue. She took a step back. "Merry Christmas, Marlon." I didn't say it back. She walked down the porch steps, shoulders hunched against the wind. And I stood there, holding the door, staring at her fading shape in the snow. She was right about one thing. It had all been a show, but not the kind with an audience. The kind with no exit. And as I closed the door behind me, I realized I still didn't know if I'd ever be able to forgive her. But I knew this. We couldn't go back. Not to what we were. Not to what we pretended to be. Whatever future we had, if there was one at all, had to start with the truth. And the truth was still too loud in my ears to forget. It was mid-January when Bernie called. I was leaving Megan's dance recital, cheap hot cocoa in one hand, her puffy pink jacket in the other, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Later, sitting in the quiet of my car, I listened. "Marlon, it's Bernie Strauss." "Yeah, that Bernie. From back in the Foresight Mutual days. I heard about what happened at Rook & Company. That was one hell of a move. I don't know whether to shake your hand or run the other way." He paused, then added, "But I've got something for you. Something real. Let's talk." I hadn't spoken to Bernie in almost 7 years. He was my first real mentor, gruff, old school, the type of guy who still used a flip phone and wrote client notes on yellow legal pads. He'd left the insurance world after a buyout and vanished into early retirement. The next morning, we met at a diner just outside the city. Bernie was older now, grayer, but still had that raspy smoker's laugh and the same cracked knuckles from decades of desk pounding. "You look like hell," he said, sliding a coffee across the table. "Feels accurate," I replied. He nodded. "Tyson burned bright, but it was always going to end messy. You, though, you played it long. You got out before the collapse." "I didn't get out. I blew it up." "Same difference," he said. "You walked away standing. That counts." Then he got down to it. "I'm building something," he said. "A boutique underwriting firm. Small, lean, honest. No flash, no parties in the mountains. Just good business and tight books. I want you in." I blinked. "You want me to come work for you?" "I want you to be a partner," he said. "Minority share. But you'll have real say. Real control." I sat back in the booth, processing. For the first time in a long time, nobody was offering me a handout. Nobody was dangling a favor in front of me like bait. This was an invitation. "I'm not the same guy you knew," I said. "I'm slower now. Quieter." "Good," Bernie said. "Fast guys flame out. Quiet guys get things done." We signed the initial agreement 2 weeks later. Nothing flashy, just ink and paper and a handshake in a downtown office with secondhand furniture. And it felt right. The business grew slow but steady. I hired a small team, handpicked. People who cared about the work, not the image. We wrote our first policy in February. Our 10th by March. By summer, we were profitable. My days became full again, but with purpose this time. I picked up the kids on time. I coached Thomas's middle school robotics club. I made pancakes on Sundays. Linnea and I kept our communication strictly transactional. Drop-offs, pickups, calendar logistics. She was civil, quiet, never asked for more. She faded into the background, not because I hated her, but because she no longer defined my center of gravity. One night, Megan asked if Mommy would ever live with us again. I didn't lie. "No," I said gently. "But she still loves you. And I'll always be here." That seemed to be enough. Eventually, the texts from Linnea stopped. The emails, too. She settled into her new life, wherever that was. I didn't ask. Didn't want to know. I changed my locks. My passwords. My routines. Not out of fear, but because this time, everything I built was mine. The new company didn't make headlines. It didn't throw holiday parties and ski lodges. But it paid its people fairly and kept its promises. That was enough. And me? I stopped being the man who made quiet sacrifices hoping someone would notice. I stopped waiting to be thanked or loved back into shape. I became something else. Not a husband. Not a victim. Just a man who finally learned how to start again. Not with rage. Not with revenge. But with clarity and control. The fire had passed. The smoke had cleared. And on the other side, I could finally see the road.